Good afternoon, people of God. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to be before you this afternoon to set the record straight about the media reportings of the 1st of December 2024. The title of this response is Debunking Lies and Myths about the Alleged Improper Relationship between Sizwe Africa IT Group and myself, the Eastern Cape Department of Education, and Dr. Naledi Mbude Mehana, my wife. I note the contents of the Sunday Times article dated Sunday, 1st December 2024, titled For Love or Money by Mr. Thanduzolo Jika. Suffice to say that Mr. Thanduzolo Jika called us on Friday the 29th of November, a Friday before he published this article. And he sent us questions and we responded to the best of our ability. But as we read the article, we can see that maybe deliberately so, he decided not to include most of our answers into the article. But also it is glaring that he is deliberately conflating myself as an individual and Sizwe as a company. He is conflating some contracts that are a subject of his article, and it's only him who knows why he did so. Mr. Jika sets some very conflating messages in his article, of course, with other media houses which wrote the article. He set out unfounded claims of a purported financial relationship between myself and my wife, Dr. Naledi Mbude Mehana. I have a responsibility to set the record straight. And that is the purpose of this press release. These claims are not only untrue, they are malevolent and are intended to harm our dignity and our good name. It is not very difficult to see that the perpetrators of these truthless news have access to a range of media houses. We have our own theory as to who is doing that and why, because due to a set of actions that were set off from September 24, they were suggestive that this day will come. We have ample evidence that these are driven by current recruitment process, which my wife, Dr. Naledi Mbude Mehana, has since applied for. The timing of these articles and the media buzz coincides with the closing date of this post, which was Friday, the 29th November 2024, the same day Mr. Jika called us. It is quite coincidental, isn't it? We will prove that veracity of these claims are appropriated to me. You will agree that this is a well-oiled snipper machine that we saw coming. We will still expect more desperation. It was in 2021 that we read about the imminent Hawks investigation in the media. Up to now, no law enforcement agency has been in contact with us. We find it strange that the media does not respect the very process that it purports to be happening in order to safeguard its integrity. Various media houses with the same story at the same time creates a curiosity and is very telling. Sizwe Africa IT Group, as a company, is in a business relationship with the Eastern Cape Department of Education. And this relationship dates back to prior 2014. Dr. Vukile Mehana has never been part of any award to the Sizwe IT contracts at the Eastern Cape Department of Education, nor at its inception, nor on negotiating the awarding of any of these contracts. She assumed a 1-month stint as acting HOD in 2021, in the month of March, and executed her operational duties as an accounting officer for that month, like the other 2 men who acted with her from month to month. Not a single malicious claim is made by journalists against decisions of her male counterparts, which are similar to hers in all respects. Proof again, her targeting and the deliberate narrative being pushed of a woman who acted improperly, serving personal interest. This intentionality happens during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. This is a violation of her dignity, all done in the name of rooting out corruption. How can one violate a right to give effect to another right? Violations are violations. Please note, the journalists deliberately conflate the operational rental agreements between Sizwe as a company and the department starting from 2024 and the famous tablets rental agreement, which was signed in 2019, which was interdicted by the Bishop High Court on the 29th September 2020. According to the journalists, the amount of 330 million was paid to the tablets rental agreement. This is not true, as this interdict is still in place even today, with not even a cent being paid to it. Both these contracts happened at a time when I was not an executive director of Sizwe, but a non-executive chairman. Therefore, the innuendo that Sizwe IT got a contract through me is ludicrous and is void of any truth. Let me deal with 2 key issues which are raised in Mr. Jika and other papers' stories. The first one, let me elaborate on the Sizwe Africa IT Group and Eastern Cape Department of Education relationship. And secondly, I will deal with alleged conflict of interest as a result of my relationship with my wife. Rental agreements scheduled 1 to 8, which are between Sizwe Africa IT Group and the department, is a long-standing business relationship. As I said, stemming back to the year 2014, and these are for operational rental agreements for the department. The contract owners in the Eastern Cape Department of Education have all the documents to prove this business relationship. Mr. Jika deliberately chose not to mention excuse me, any of the evidence provided to him, nor our full responses. It is because the facts don't suit the narrative pushed. The intention is to mislead, not to inform the public. Dr. Vukile Mehana had nothing to do with any of these contracts, and all the signatures of those involved since 2014 are on those contracts. He could have easily gone and saw them. The payment made to Sizwe are for these rental agreements, not for the interdicted contract, which is referred to as the tablets contract. And all these contracts, there were never, not a single one of them, awarded by Dr. Vukile. The famous tablets contracts is referred to as the rental agreement schedules 9 to 10, which was financed by Standard Bank and signed between Sizwe Africa IT Group and the Department of Education in 2019, as I've said. This was 2 years before Dr. Vukile Mehana was appointed as the head of department in the Eastern Cape Department of Education. This being the tablets contract, apparently it was piggybacked to the contract of the Department of Education, of Economic Development. This being the tablets contracts, which was piggybacked to the DDET contract, a model chosen by the Eastern Cape Department of Education. The head of department at the time was the late Mr. Themba Kwajana, may his soul rest in peace. And this model was then challenged by CETA in the courts. It is that contract that was interdicted on the 29th of September 2020. As I said, to date, that interdict is still in place. No monies have been paid into it, despite attempts by the three parties subsequent to the interdict that they wanted to settle this matter out of court. Such parties being Sizwe, CETA, and Eastern Cape Department of Education. They were trying to find each other to settle the matter so that they could go back to court as the three parties and persuade the judge to uplift the interdict. Therefore, any reference, as mentioned in the Sunday articles, that there were payments made to this contract by Dr. Naledi Vukile Mehana are false and malicious. Again, there is no mention of the role players in this accusation by Mr. Jika. Dr. Vukile is singled out because at the time a second proposal was sent to the Eastern Cape Department of Education by Sizwe as one of those proposals which could see this interdict being lifted. And she happened to be the head of department at the time. There is nothing to disclose, as these are daily operations. There is no financial benefit for her in any of Sizwe contracts. There can be no conflict of interest when you find a contract running and you just deal with the administrative and operational issues that affects them. The proposal of an interdicted contract is to the department, not to her. So there is no award of a contract that she signed. This maliciousness is intended to dent her image and posture her as corrupt, exactly what her article penned in the Daily Maverick on the 30th of November suggests only way for her was to find something to denigrate her integrity. Going further with the operational rental agreement, as I said, of Schedules 1 to 8, while Sizwe provided all these services as stipulated as per the dictates of each of these contracts, the Department of Education from time to time was always in arrears with their payments to Sizwe, a matter that was constantly being brought to the attention, as I've said, of the then head of department, the late Mr. Kojana, since 2017. Communication about this contract is an operational matter with all HODs. In January 2021, Mr. Temba Kojana died, unfortunately, and after his death, the Premier decided that all the DDGs, which included Reverend Dr. Mbude, will act on month-to-month basis with Mr. Ray Kwakadi, who started acting in January 2021. The same communication from Sizwe about the arrears was even sent to him, but it is not mentioned in the Sunday Times. In February, Mr. Kwakadi was followed by the late Dr. Nuku, may his soul rest in peace, whose name and picture appears on the Sunday article. Dr. Nuku acted as an HOD in February 2021. On the 15th of February 2021, Dr. Nuku received a letter of demand from Mr. Hanno van Dijk, who was the Chief Executive Officer of Sizwe Africa IT Group, to pay all outstanding amounts owed by the Eastern Cape Department of Education to Sizwe Africa Group. His letter is here. It is referred to as Annexure A. In response, on the 26th of February 2021, Dr. Nuku committed, as quoted in paragraph 4 of this letter, dated the 26th February 2021. Dr. Nuku said, "The department commits," I quote, "the department commits in ensuring that all arrear payments outstanding of all schedules linked to the current contract with Sizwe Africa IT Group are fully settled and paid up to date by the 31st March 2021. Mr. Nuku's letter is referred to as Annexure B, which is here. Subsequent to the commitment to settle all outstanding payments to Sizwe, as made by Dr. Nuku on the 26th February 2021, to settle all outstanding payments by 31st March 2021, much was already in debt. Dr. Mbude then followed Dr. Nuku to act as HOD in March 2021. As soon as she took the seat, she noted the prior commitment made by Dr. Nuku, and she immediately informed the Chief Financial Officer of the value of the outstanding amounts to all suppliers, a situation which proved impossible to meet the commitment made by the previous acting HOD, Dr. Nuku. However, a similar letter to Sizwe IT Group was penned by Dr. Mbude On the 12th of March, this is the letter, interestingly, that was given to Mr. Jiga. Only that letter of Dr. Mbude was given to Mr. Jiga by whoever. And then, after that, this letter of Dr. Mbude made a commitment of paying 29 million rand to Sizwe on the 16th of March 2021. The reason for that, it was to avoid a switch off by Sizwe, who was threatening to do so, as a result of not meeting the commitment made by Dr. Nugu to settle all the outstanding amounts by 31st March 2021. So Dr. Mbude noticed that looking at the amount of debt to the suppliers, it will not be possible to meet the commitment that Dr. Nugu made. Hence, she made this payment of 29 million rand to Sizwe, pleading with them not to switch off the services in order to inconvenience the whole department. The amount, according to her, which was owed to all the suppliers, which were supposed to have been paid by the end of March, was 1.8 billion rand, and it was going to be impossible to meet the promise that Dr. Nugu made. In response to the letter of commitment of 29 million rand to Sizwe Africa IT Group by Dr. Mbude to alleviate the outstanding value, Mr. Hanno van Dijk, the CEO of Sizwe IT Group, in his letter of response dated 16 March 2021, and that letter is here as Annexure D, Mr. Hanno van Dijk in this letter did not accept the payment commitment of 29 million rand, as there was a big amount that was owed by the department to Sizwe. And also, it was contrary to the commitment that was done by Dr. Nugu in the previous month. No mention is made by the Sunday Times of these facts, and Mr. Jiga was given this evidence. One can only deduce why the facts were never presented. Facts don't matter. Half-truths do. By the time facts are reported, the public would have consumed all the lies and her dignity would be shattered. This is a violation of her rights to dignity as espoused in Section 10 of the Constitution of our country. Failure by the Eastern Cape Department of Education to honor the commitment made by Dr. Nugu during his acting in February 2021 of settling all outstanding amounts to Sizwe Africa IT Group. Then between the 1st April 2021, which is the new financial year of government, and 15th of March 2022, the following year, these discussions between the management of Sizwe and the officials of the department to try and resolve these arrears culminated to a letter written by the Chief Revenue Officer of Sizwe to the Chief Financial Officer of the Eastern Cape Department of Education, dated the 15th March 2022. And here is that letter as Annexure E. This letter submits the settlement value that must be paid by the department to Sizwe. And interestingly, that is the letter that says the amount owed is 330,914,964 rand 60 cents. This is the debt amount peddled in the media to have been paid by Dr. Vukile Mehana, which is false and malicious. Eight months into the position of head of department, Dr. Vukile was suspended by the Premier of the Eastern Cape for reasons that had nothing to do with the payment of Sizwe Africa IT Group. These reasons include that the Eastern Cape Department of Education did not have money to pay suppliers, no money to buy textbooks, and low expenditure of the infrastructure grant by implementing agencies. And that resulted in the withdrawal of an amount of 290 million rand that would have gone to the Eastern Cape. This became the reason for her suspension. It had no misconduct, no underperformance, and no allegation of impropriety. When this 330 million rand that is peddled in the newspapers, settling the old debt on the operational contracts dating back to 2014 was made, Dr. Vukile was serving her suspension at home. How could she pay, while she's sitting at home, an amount of 330 million rand from the Eastern Cape Department of Education to Sizwe? Noting the timelines as they appear in the Sunday Times, there's a page there which has got our pictures. It clearly shows the inaccuracies of the dates in relation to the payment of these 330 million rand and her dates of resignation. One can only deduce a malicious intent and misleading of the public deliberately. South Africa is able to distill the truth from the lies when you look at that page. Under my picture, which is there, please note how the journalist put it. He says, on the 5th of April 2022, Dr. Vukile is suspended. And immediately below, he says, on the 25th of April 2022, an amount of 98 million rand is paid to Sizwe Africa IT Group, deliberately inferring that it was paid by Dr. Vukile. This is the deliberate move to mislead the public to believe that she is the one who paid this amount to Sizwe Africa IT Group, even though she was already serving her suspension and at home, sitting at home. It must be noted that after she was suspended on the 5th of April 2022, Mr. Mashubandile Kwase became, from the office of the Premier, became the acting head of department. Looking further down, the journalist states that on the 11th of May 2022, Dr. Vukile resigns after reaching a settlement with the Eastern Cape Premier. A statement that is incorrect, as Dr. Vukile resigned after reaching the settlement with the Premier the following year, which was on the 3rd of May 2023. Yet again, the journalist is misleading the public But more importantly, the journalist states that on May 26, 2022, while Dr. Mbude, according to him, is supposed to have been suspended on the 5th of April and supposed to have resigned on the 11th of May. But note that the journalist says that on May 26, this suspended person, this person who has resigned, there is a payment of 232 million paid to Sizwe Africa IT Group, inferring once more that it has been paid by Dr. Mbude, even though above the journalist says she resigns on the 11th of May. You resign on the 11th of May, but you pay 232 million on the 26th of the same month. How is that possible? And you are resigning being on suspension. We find this very, very malicious and damaging because it is completely incorrect. This once more shows how malicious this journalist is. He was determined not only to tarnish, but to destroy Dr. Mbude's credibility. It begs to say that there is a deliberate attempt to link her to the payments made, to misinform the public. Looking at the picture that I've painted above, I written to the journalist looking at the picture that is above, written above, the journalist writes that as an executive chairman of Sizwe Africa IT Group, I sent a proposal of 594 million to Dr. Mbude, valid 30th September 2021. He doesn't mention that these were discussions from attorneys representing parties being CETA, DOE, and Sizwe, a matter that was part of my response to him, to try and settle this court interdict. This is another proposal. There was another proposal that was sent to Mr. Mahlomandile Kwasi on the 15th of February 2023, still in pursuit by the parties to find an out-of-court settlement of the tablets contracts, out of court. And that letter, which was written to Mr. Kwasi, is referred to as Annexure F. And this proposal was for an amount of 649 million rand, because for as long as we don't pay the Standard Bank adds interest. That is for the reason that we were trying to settle this matter as parties so that we don't have to pay as high amount as it is growing. But the interesting thing is that the amount that is sent to Mr. Kwasi is far more than the amount as a proposal that was sent to Dr. Mbude. None of this is mentioned. The intention is to tarnish and harm. It is indeed a sad reality that women are postured as incompetent and corrupt, and any action on her part as an accounting officer doing her normal operation is viewed as impropriety. After her article of the 30th of November to the Daily Maverick, women are sending her their stories. It takes a brave woman, great courage, to withstand all this. The last proposal to try and settle this tablet contract, which is interdicted, was sent by Mr. Altus Stuop, the Chief Operating Officer of Sizwe Africa IT Group, to Dr. Nugu, who was the acting head of department, on the 7th of September 2023, for an amount which we received from Standard Bank of 587,552,000 as demanded by Standard Bank. And that letter, with its annexures, is referred to as Annexure G. The journalist is creating an impression that Dr. Mehana only wrote these proposals to settle this court, to settle this matter in court to Dr. Mbude. He doesn't mention other letters sent to Mr. Mahlubandile Kwase. He doesn't mention the other letter that was sent to Dr. Nugu. He singles out the proposal that only sent to Dr. Mbude. It is obvious that once more again, he is trying to peddle a narrative that there was a corrupt relationship. However, the journalist elected to focus on inconclusive evidence to try and push this negative narrative about myself and my wife. A false claim of a conflict of interest is hereby created in the minds of the public. In summary, proceeding from the above, the business relationship is between Sizwe Africa IT Group as a company and Eastern Cape Department of Education. There is no direct business relationship that exists between myself and the Eastern Cape Department of Education. Therefore, the extrapolation by the journalist is misleading, as at all material times, no money was paid from the Eastern Cape Department of Education to the personal account of myself. Both Dr. Mehanas are able to fund their own wedding, especially that was held at their home, as it seems that it was a very lavish wedding. The inference to this lavish wedding is intended to create an image of extravagance, which is funded by public funds. Once more, this is a lie that is meant to fuel negative publicity on our good name. Let me now deal with the alleged conflict of interest. One of the main allegations by the journalist in his article is alleging that there is a direct conflict of interest that was never disclosed by Dr. Mbude, as she failed to disclose her intimate relationship with Dr. Mehana. We are not aware of any law that requires officials of the department to declare their personal relationships. Where there are no financial interests, particularly. In this case, no monies are reported stolen, or a debt has been paid by various people, and there's still nothing wrong. The relationship between Dr. Vukile Mehana and the contracts between Sizwe and DOE were already running as from 2013 when Dr. Vukile was appointed HOD on the 1st of June 2021. At no stage were contracts awarded to Sizwe by her as a result of the relationship, whether before she was appointed or after her appointment. Government officials are expected to disclose their financial interests once in a cycle of a year. The Public Service Commission states in the disclosure framework of government that there are three main considerations for disclosure. One, where there is a financial interest. Two, if in adjudicating a tender one knows one of the bidders. And three, where there would be conflict of interest in the awarding of a tender. Disclosing personal life matters that have no bearing on any beneficiation is not a requirement for disclosure. Based on the above, in Dr. Mbude's circumstances, the principles of financial disclosure, as outlined in the policy on financial disclosures, on the 7 categories for financial disclosure are not applicable. Thank you to her suspension. We had time, at least, to get married without using any funds from any other source except our own sources. It has been established that Dr. Mbude did not participate in the awarding of any tender to Sizwe as mentioned before, during her tenure as head of department. She still has no financial interest at Sizwe whatsoever. The journalist decides to go even deeper and be personal to me by mentioning the matter of my divorce and its relation to my current marriage. How low can you go? It is public knowledge amongst family and friends that I have been on my own for a long time. All close relatives know about the breakdown of my previous marriage and reasons for it. These had nothing to do with Dr. Vukile Mehana. I had an amicable divorce settlement with both of us agreeing that it had indeed been a long time of separation due to our own reasons. The settlement agreement was also leaked to the media for public scrutiny. I refused to comment at the time, as the impression was created by the journalist of a solid marriage of 32 years. All lies, even then. The two people involved in a marriage know best, and the media is last place to divulge our situation. Since we have photographs of the wedding, my children were all present to welcome Dr. Mbude to our family. We all know the truth and will not hang our linen in the public. The divorce in 2022 had nothing to do with any payment as inferred by the journalist. I have a right of association as and when I see fit. My family and friends are extremely happy that at last one chapter has been closed of my life and a new one has started. My private matters remain private, but for transparency, I will not keep quiet. When lies are painted, I will not allow further victimization of my family, even by Mr. Tandukolo Chika. I challenge him in this public platform that Mr. Jika please produce 1 iota of evidence that proves that Dr. Mbude paid these 2 tranches of amount, 98 million rand and 232 million rand. And such money, 330 million, found its way to me or my family. Please produce that evidence. Your failure to do so makes me to reserve my legal rights, as I will not allow you to destroy my hard-earned credibility. There is also an IOL article dated 2nd December. This article seems to address misleading reports on Hawk's investigation as reported by the Sunday Times. I wish to correct the paragraph that says, while Reverend Mehana holds 5% shareholding in Sizwe Africa ID Group, he had no management role or involvement in the operations of the company. And then it goes on to say Mr. Mehana resigns from the board of Sizwe when the company reported the matter to the authorities. This paragraph is misleading. Number one, I was involved with the management of Sizwe. In 2019, when I was initially appointed as the CEO of Sizwe, and subsequently as the executive chairman, those appointments are management appointments. So this paragraph is misleading. Number two, I never resigned from the board of Sizwe. I served on that board until I retired on the 31st of January, 2024. A farewell party was held in my honor, and I brought my family. Many positive accolades were shared, and even presents were given to me. Therefore, this paragraph in that article is totally incorrect. In conclusion, noting the above facts, we wish to reiterate that the contents of the media reports of the 1st of December 2024 are a complete misrepresentation of facts, and they border into an orchestrated media campaign to tarnish the good name of the Mehanas, particularly that of Dr. Mbude Mehana. As a senior government official, she has a right to apply for any vacant post in any government department and anywhere else in the country. The perpetrators are trying their best to eliminate her from an equal opportunity now and in the future. These attacks are well documented in her article in the Daily Maverick of the 30th of November 2024 about the plight of women in senior government positions. I want to appeal to the media. The media is one of the most important pillars of our democracy. And it is important that we should, at all material times, give them the honor and transparency in order to ensure that our democracy is stable. However, it is unfortunate that some of the journalists decide to violate constitutional provisions that guarantees the media freedom for the protection of the public of South Africa. They abuse, as it has happened in these articles, and in so doing, destroying human dignity. Some of these journalists They allow themselves to be used by dark forces for disruptive purposes, especially to destroy the lives of innocent people. I know who I am. I know who Dr. Mbude is. You know us. There is not even a cent that came from the Department of Education that was paid by Dr. Mbude to seize the IT group, let alone because of our relationship. That is very malicious and nothing else. It seeks nothing else but to destroy our hand-earned credibility, which is the only thing that we have. This story, I pray to God that it will not defocus us as the family of being a family that is based on values of honesty and integrity, of hating corruption in all its forms, and also ensuring that our children, they live on those values of honest living. We will not be deterred to be one of those honest citizens of this country. We will not be diverted by whatever Mr. Thandutolo Jika and his colleagues have written in that article. I pray for you, my brother. I pray for you, my son, that as you do your work, stand in truth and nothing else but truth, so that you can gain the confidence of the public as you call yourself an investigative journalist, but truly investigate the truth so that you can be able to save the destruction of many innocent lives. I pray for you. I pray for your colleagues. May God bless you. Thank you.